Après plusieurs autres villes aussi différentes que Rome, Berlin, Ouest,
Bollywood to Hollywood with Rao Rampilla. Today we have a special guest from France, producer, director, and you name it, you got it, Olivier. We're going to show you the audience your one of your commercials, so they know how good you are.
Okay.
Could we run the commercial, first one? No, he is going to run the commercial.
Кто это? Леонид Комаровский, новый любимчик президента. Учился капитализму в Гарварде, теперь работает в Кремле.
А серебряная груша? Откуда она?
Французская, называется Клио. Как говорят французы, elle a tout d'une grande. Говорят, на Западе ее можно увидеть везде.
Везде? Это роскошь везде?
Коммунистический рай.
The French new wave of directors rallied to support their mentor Henri Langlois in February 1968, when the French government, who funded the Cinémathèque, suddenly dismissed its eccentric director for incompetent administration. Messages of support came from filmmakers all over the world. On the 14th of February, 3,000 people turned out at the Palais de Chaillot to protest. On that fateful day in February 1968, events took an unexpectedly violent turn.
It was really rather incredible. On the one hand, you had these kind of nerdy characters who were the film buffs holding up banners that said "Film pas flic," films not cops. And suddenly there were these robots, these guys with their masks and their truncheons and their riot guns and their stun weaponry or whatever, and they suddenly charged. Not only was I chased by the police and my fellow film buffs, but Truffaut was beaten over the head and his forehead was bloodied, and Godard was pushed around, and these were, you know, prominent personalities in French culture.
I think in de Gaulle's France, the apparatus of repression in academia, in higher education, was probably stronger than anywhere else, and it was quite strong everywhere. The Grand Maîtres, the great leaders of the schools of the University of Paris, would have enormous power, and students were kept down. And in the new University of Paris, in Vincennes, where the troubles begin, I think the authorities are having difficulty inventing a new type of university for the great horde of new students who turn up.
To help relieve the pressure of a growing student population, the government built a new university in the working-class neighbourhood of Nanterre. Here 19,000 students are crammed into a modern but small facility, and they are daily elbow to elbow at cafes and on the streets with workers. The politics of the time, stirred primarily by growing protests against the US war in Vietnam, is creeping into the student population. The administration building is occupied by 150 students claiming to be anarchists. The university is closed until April the 1st.
And so this is where you get the first clashes, and the university authorities call in the cops. And the cops are used to dealing pretty brutally with demonstrators. They've dealt brutally with Algerian demonstrators in recent times. And so they wield their clubs, and actually, before long, the whole clash spirals in the most extraordinary way. I think largely because of the media. There are a lot of television people around in Paris at this time. There's the Vietnam peace talks going on in Paris.
A militant student group forms out of the event, calling itself the March 22nd movement. One of its leaders is Daniel Cohn-Bendit. Following an action in April, Cohn-Bendit is arrested. 400 students from Nanterre go to Paris and to the Sorbonne to protest.
I think there was something there which reached out beyond the normal. The fact that the French government, tried to deport him because he was technically of German birth. The fact that hundreds of thousands of young French workers, as well as students, demonstrated using the banner "Bring back Cohn-Bendit, we are all German Jews." He was a German Jew. Somehow they were revolting against stereotypes of nationality and race as much as stereotypes of consumerism and stereotypes of the well-behaved student and worker.
The police attacks wake up the student population, and the 400 swells to several thousand. It takes 5 hours to quell the disturbance.
This first means that more and more students come out, students who aren't necessarily political, but just think authority's gone mad, and who also feel stifled by Gaullist paternalism.
More than 100 people are injured. Close to 600 are arrested. That week, tens of thousands of posters calling for action begin to appear in Paris. While the Prime Minister of France, Georges Pompidou, makes state visits to Iran and to Afghanistan, courses at Nanterre are suspended due to the Cohn-Bendit incident. Courses at the Sorbonne are suspended indefinitely. Meanwhile, 2 unions, the UNEF and the SNESUP, call for unlimited strikes. As the protests become battles, 600 students are hurt, 345 police are wounded, and 422 arrests are made.
What had begun in March 1968 as a student revolt at Nanterre on the outskirts of Paris, by May had become a nationwide protest against the French political regime. Major factories were closed down by strikes, and in Paris, students occupied the University of the Sorbonne.
The clip is about confrontation, Paris 1968.
(1968). Industrial societies throughout the world are in ferment following 2 decades of growth and prosperity. As in the early 19th century, unrest begins in urban centers of culture: Berkeley, New York, Tokyo, Rome, Milan, Berlin, Prague. The ferment originates among the marginal, among those considered to be wards and dependents of society. France, the mother country of revolution, seems immune.
So what you got to say for that? The mother country, France, is not immune. And you know, at the time, everything was going around the world. There was a civil rights movement in America, Berkeley campus, Columbia campus, NYU campus, and you have Prague and all those, Milan, Berlin, and all those places. So, but the French took the lead, and it's a very historic movement.
Yes, yes. It's interesting because it was really something, as you said, which was happening everywhere. So it was the whole society, not only in France, but everywhere, was changing. And it was changing with young people, and not with the normal political game.
I'm curious, how did it affect you as a 13-year-old? Did you, I mean, I remember one time we have protests in India. I was kind of feverish, and my friends went and threw cocktail bottles at the police. I couldn't go because I had a high fever. Then my uncle came and said, "Good, he got a fever." So did you jump into the street, or did you have an occasion, or somebody restrained you? No, don't go, or uh, how did it feel, and what did you do at that time?
No, I was too young to go to the big protest and the big things which were quite violent and so on. So kids like me were not really allowed. We could have, it was because it was quite violent, and it was there was real fights between the police and the students. So a young kid like me could not have his place there. But we were going, it was funny because we were listening and so on, so we knew that the night before it had been very hot, that they had burned a lot of cars and so on. So the next day, because we had no schools were closed and so on, so the next day, during the day, we were going with some friends to see the result of what had happened the night before. So it was our way to participate, but we really could not go to the big game, unfortunately.
But how did this affect you and your generation of growing up?
It really affected everything. After May 68, everything was much more free. The way to talk, the way to behave in schools, in church for the people who believed in something, in the companies and so on. Everything was more free, was more made with a sense of humor. So you started to have the titles of the first page of some magazine with funny things, even to present serious things. That's the time, Charlie, the guy who was killed January. So it started during those years. It was called Harakiri. Harakiri, it was a magazine, it was a weekly magazine, or monthly at the beginning. And it was really very funny, and it was very, very, how can I say, it was really breaking all the laws of what you correctly must say, think, present, and so on. And it was very very good for everybody. I mean, even the bourgeois. I was born in the bourgeoisie and so on. Not too strict, but still. And people were very happy that that things moved. They found their lives much more open, much more easy, and so on. It was much more easy to talk about sexuality, and it was not because as it was before, something which was bad, which was difficult, and so on. No, things were. It was make love, not war, and so on. It was very, very good. You know, even the minister of one of the minister of police.
Yeah.
He said, because one of the slogans, one of the on some posters of the students, it was said, "I do revolution. More I do revolution, more I want to make love." And the minister of police put on his office, he said, "More I make repression, more I want to sleep."
Well, you know, recently there was an incident of French head of the IMF, and he got into trouble in New York. And then he went back. He could have been the president, but see, the thing now I'm worrying about is what happened to recently Je suis Charlie. Je suis Charlie, and then also it seems like students and the young people, they have nothing to fight for except for money or fancy stuff. At least your generation has something to fight for, have dreams and aspirations. So watching back, it's kind of inspires things, and see how dull life these young people have. Sometimes I feel sorry for them. But that kind of tells me where we are going. Where this world and where this Western society is going.
Yeah, it depends, because I think you are right, but it's also because in France, we actually, like in some countries, we are quite free, and so we don't need to fight. But you had quite the same thing happening 2 years ago. It was in Turkey. I don't know if you remember the thing about Gezi Park. Those they wanted to destroy a park to make a shopping mall.
Yeah.
And the young people went to the park and they stayed there and so on. And I was in Istanbul at this time, and it was exactly the same spirit. So people were, the young people, they were fighting. But they were not violent. They had a lot of humor, and they wanted the same freedom of speech and so on. Unfortunately, in front of them, they had not a guy like Pompidou. They had Erdogan, who was ready to kill people and not to talk. But I mean, the spirit of the people was the same. And maybe it was because they want the society really to change, because there are many things to be changed, to be more free and so on. In France, or maybe in America and so on, we don't have so much to fight for freedom. We have the freedom. You can say what you want. So the society is really not the same than before 68. I mean, 68 has made such a big change, and which really changes the society. So now the problems are not the same.
Okay. Well, you have a Turkish connection. Your wife is from Turkey, right?
Yes.
And it seems like you have affinity. We will talk in another episode about this. But I just wanted to close this show maybe with the spirit of Sorbonne. Can we have another clip?
Strike may have reminded people of the Paris Commune, but May '68 in France was the real thing. What began as a student protest for reform of the archaic, authoritarian French university system sparked a general strike that electrified the country.
They were anarchists, most of them. That was the spirit. The slogan was all power to the imagination, that you can do anything. That we don't have to live with all the various forms of repression, which we're used to. So it was anti-capitalist, but that was just part of this general, complete sort of cultural revolution that the French students were anticipating. And so it's interesting that although they were the furthest out in any way politically, that was also the one place where workers joined with students and almost toppled the government.
May 10th, the night of the barricades, 20,000 students marched in the Latin Quarter. Police and students clashed. Street fighting went on for weeks. The rioting and marches of up to 500,000 people frightened not only President de Gaulle, but the French Communist Party as well. The old left thought this new left was out of control. They had impossible dreams.
The two principal slogans, I think, were quotations from Marx and Rimbaud. From Marx, let us change the world. From Rimbaud, let us change life.
Carlos Fuentes, the Mexican novelist, was an active participant in May '68, along with many international students caught up in the excitement.
What there was a sense of extraordinary brotherhood and sisterhood. There was this capacity to embrace people in the streets. There were couples kissing. There were couples that fell apart because they did not share political views. Paris was divided by the River Seine as never before. On the left bank, you had the left, the revolutionaries, the dreamers. On the right side, you had the conservatives, you had the Gaullists, you had the financiers, the money people, the bourgeoisie. So the city was divided as much as in Les Misérables in Victor Hugo or in any of the great occasions of this city that seems to need a great revolutionary explosion from time to time.
Eventually, the May uprising subsided. The powerful trade unions controlled by the communists refused to take part, and police kept up relentless pressure. But over time, the students did succeed in reforming and modernizing the French educational system, and they rejuvenated the Socialist Party, which a decade later became the elected government of France.
It became a great, gigantic fraternal feast in which everybody was kissing everybody, embracing everybody, patting everybody on the back, and saying how happy they were and how free they felt. And this was contagious. It was marvelous, and I don't think we'll ever see it again.
So he is saying what you were saying, Carlos. So what do you think? Do you have anything to say?
No, what is interesting, at the beginning, in fact, when it was only students, it was very sympathetic, even if there was some violence and so on. I think it became quite a real panic when it became political. So at one point, unions and so on joined, and it became a general strike. It started with the French television. Until then, television was really in the hand of the government. And at one point, the French television said, fuck, we join the students. And it was totally incredible for De Gaulle and so on. He could not understand. And then the strike was everywhere. And suddenly people started to panic. And that's where, in fact, the movement ended, because people were afraid that it was going too far. And De Gaulle made something. He had not understood what was happening at the beginning, but he made something which was quite clever. It is that he disappeared for 6 days. And for 6 days, suddenly, because De Gaulle people liked him, did not like him, but it was De Gaulle, and he was really more or less the father of the nation. And suddenly there was no father anymore. And it was a kind of panic for a lot of people. And so I think that's the way when he came back, people were afraid that the strikes were going too far and so on. And there was a big movement who made the thing coming in order again. It was quite interesting.
I mean, even Festival de Cons that year they stopped, which they never did in their history. We can go on talking about it for a long, long time. Absolutely. But I guess we have the time limitation, so we have to stop some point somewhere. So thanks for coming onto my show, and thanks for educating me and our audience about your impressions about Sorbonne and the student revolution and the future, what it may be, especially after this. Something else is happening about this Greece also. Now you have just with Charlie, now Greece. There is a new leftist government, and they are protesting the economic issues. So we don't know which direction the world is going to go, so especially the Western world. So do you have any last words about that, or should I say thank you and goodbye?
I thank you. I thank you for your interest, and also it would be very interesting to hear more about your protests in India, and It was. I would like to learn more about it. So maybe next time we talk.
I wrote a play about it, Gandhi and Untouchables, but I couldn't put everything there. But it's one day we'll sit down and talk over a cup of, say, a glass of wine. But thank you very much. So let's end this. There was when I went there, the only protest I saw was by sex trade workers. There is a clip. So I was from the balcony. I was. So they were fighting for some equal rights or some trade union rights. Kind of looks odd, feels odd for an American or for a third world person, but it shows your society has gone further than most of the other societies. So what's your project next? Now from movies, now you are turning into, or moving into writing the novels.
Yeah, I already wrote novels. I've had last year I had 2 books published, a novel and another book about a French writer. In September, this September, I will have a book published about or around the film Midnight Express.
Yeah.
And now I'm finishing a novel which is set between France and Kazakhstan, and it will be a film also. So I write it as a novel, but after I will make a script out of it. So that's the plan for now. And after I have another project with Danny Kouyaté, with whom I made Soleil. So we have some work.
Well, you have a couple of novels that won some prizes, right?
Yes, with a novel published in last April, so 1 year ago. So far, the 3 awards.
So what is next to you? You have studied law, you have studied art history, and you made commercials, you made short films, and you graduated and contributed feature films. Now you are becoming a novelist. So are you going to act next, or or become a scientist, or become a musician? So what is next to you, Olivier?
I'm happy with writing and filming. If I can continue to write and to make films, I'm very happy.
Okay, whatever makes you happy will make us happy. So I wish you all the best, and thanks for coming onto the show, Bollywood to Hollywood. I wish we have more time. We can go and talk a lot, but the show is only for half an hour. So until another show, thank you and goodbye. And
I thank you very much, Rao. It was a real pleasure to talk to you, and I'm very pleased to be from Hollywood to Bollywood.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.